Alright, so now both sides of my tooling match. You come up to here. This is kind of funky, I think. It's just a little bit crooked, and I cut this a little bit crooked, so I kind of want to fine tune it. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee while I do this. So the way I sometimes will fine tune things is, I'll bring this down here a little bit, is I have a trusty dremel tool with an adjustable speed that is directly relative to the battery life. And so you can take this and use it to kind of even things up a little bit. You can scuff your leather very easily, so be careful. Having a general sanding wheel anyway can be helpful for cleaning up your edges. Not quite where I like it yet. And then I also, somewhere on my table, I hid it from myself, as I do. Oops. Aha. I also have one of these, sorry about that. I also have one of these handy utility knives. Like I said, you can scuff your leather doing this. I don't really mind it so much. I don't mind things looking a little bit rough if I'm doing work for myself. Just trying to get a little bit of the lip off of this leather. And it's fairly easy to cut it too much. I don't care for that. So what I might do is it looks more even now, but it's really not. This happened because I didn't use a template. It's a little bit rough, but I think it'll be okay. I'm just gonna suck it up. Okay, so moving on, I kind of decided, so I'm looking at my handy dandy blueprint. This is the part we're working on. In the past, I'd kind of said that I wanted to do some kind of decorative panels kind of on the side here with maybe like some background weaving going on. So, you know, I'm going to start mapping that out to where it will match on both sides. So to do that, I'm going to make a handy dandy newspaper template, which is that's just how I plan everything, is with newspaper. Because it's just much easier to mess up with newspaper. Okay, it's not easier, it's just much cheaper to mess up with newspaper than it is to mess up with actual leather. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this wonderful piece of newspaper that has great low price deals on it, and I'm gonna grab a handy dandy marker, and I'm gonna fix my camera a little bit, and I'm just gonna trace my armor, keeping in mind that my tracing will be slightly bigger. And I am thinking I just want it to come out to maybe like here. So now that that's done, I can move my big piece of leather out of the way. And I can say, okay, from like here, I want to come out. And you can really kind of freehand anything you want. And I kind of want to maybe line this up with like this little flower if I can, maybe. So then, so many bells. So then I'll kind of take my border like this, carry it out here, and then I can background all this in. And that's my plan. It's always good to have a plan. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to locate my wonderful scissors. And I'm going to trace out, or rather cut out, where I want my design to go exactly. And by exactly, I mean loosely. You should be as exact as you want your design to be. Since I'm just doing simple borders, it's not really a big deal. As long as I get both sides to match, I'm happy. But since I'm not going to be seeing these panels both at the same time, since they'll be on, you know, one will be on the left side of my body under my arm, and the other will be on the right side of my body under my arm. Really, if they don't match, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not like it's a huge big chest piece that will look terrible if it's off by like a centimeter. You know. But like I said, this is armor for me. When I make armor for other people, I kind of lose my mind a little bit because I want everything to be perfect. So I want this to go about here. I want this little flower to be like the break off point for this other border. So I'll put a leaf there and it'll come out and wrap around. So I'm not going to use a dry erase marker on my leather. Don't do that. Instead I have a little leather pin from Tandy Leather because that's where I get everything. And I use this for drawing on my leather. You can draw all over your leather with a leather working pen, and before you dye it, you can just wipe it all off with water and it disappears. It's honestly a lifesaver. So I'm going to line this up there, and I'm just going to mark this. So this will kind of be where our swivel knife will go when we get to, you know, carving our borders in. Be careful not to push your paper around. Boop. And actually, you know, I could continue this border up and around my arms, which I will probably do, honestly. When you're doing armor stuff, I 100% recommend having one of these bad boys And also just like a general like measuring tape for making your own measurements when you're measuring your body. This is really useful. It's also really useful if you're trying to, you know, figure out like leather stuff where this isn't applicable. Or if you need like a long ass ruler and all you have is this, kind of sucks to not have the measuring tape. But for now, I'll say, you know, my border is like 1 centimeter. I'll come up here and I'll say 1 centimeter, just to kind of try and keep everything even. I can say 1 centimeter here. Makes more sense to do this. We could draw a line. We could also draw like some basic guidelines here. Like that's 1 centimeter. That's a centimeter. You just generally want everything to look relatively even. I don't want one of these sides to be way thicker than the other one. So while I have it out in front of me, I'm just gonna do like that. When I swivel knife this, it will come out much smoother than me trying to trace newspaper. Just FYI, I'm bad at tracing. So I'll kind of curve those. This will come in straighter and all that good stuff. You can kind of barely see that on the camera, but it's this kind of metallic pen that I use. So now I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to use the exact same template so that it all matches, because otherwise it'll look kind of jacked up. Now you can see that my printing is off. This is the kind of stuff that makes my life difficult. But like I said, it's not the end of the world. It'll be fine. Right. So I'm gonna trace this. Try and do a better job than I did on the other side. Ta-da! Okay, so this one is gonna be kind of wonky. That's okay. I can work with that. Like I did before, I'm gonna go 1 centimeter in from the design. 1 centimeter in. This is really important. This is a really easy step to skip and just say, oh, I'll freehand it, or I commonly just try to get away with eyeballing things. You can do that, but I would bet money that it won't come out as well as if you would have just measured it and used a ruler. Just believe me. Just trust me on this. I try to cut corners, and like when I'm making stuff for me, I'm like, oh, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like, you know, it takes so much time to do this and that. Make plans. Draw on your leather. Know what you're doing as you're doing it. Don't try to just... I say this as I'm like drawing terribly, but you know, try to really prepare for what you're doing, because with leather, you know, when you're making cosplay armor and it's out of foam, and sometimes you develop this mindset of, you know, oh, I'll wear it to this con and then I'll tear it all apart and I'll just remake it because I don't like it or whatever. With leather, it's so durable, and you know, if you really put effort into it and it comes out nice and you make it correctly, you're creating something that can damn near outlive you, depending on how often it's used and, you know, what kind of abuse it's put through. But most of the time, leather is incredibly durable. You're making something that will, unless thrown away, last for a really long time. With that being said, you should put a lot of care into it. It's an expensive material to use. You should prepare very thoroughly, much more than you would, you know, maybe regularly. I'm just speaking from my own experience. I tended to be like, oh, you know, I should make this thing right now. I'm so excited. When really, with leather working, I had to really take a step back, not get so excited about it, kind of calm down, and really, like, put a lot of planning into things. I would say these match fairly well. So yeah, that's my advice to you. So now we've drawn our little panels that we want here. And on this side too, they're kind of hard to see because they're so shiny. So now I'll continue working on my borders now that I know the path that they'll kind of take. And I'll get back to you when that's done.